Catherine Tinsley is here to take minutes, yes?
Good evening, yes.
Hi. Okay, so welcome to the September 8th, 2021 Wenham Select Board meeting. This meeting has been called to order and has been in executive session for the last 30 minutes. I'd now like to return to open session and call the meeting back to order. We are, this is a remote meeting. We're being recorded. We have the three members of the select board here, as well as Town Administrator Ryan Ferreira, Jackie Bresnahan, and Catherine Tinsley, as well as some other folks that will speak later. So, beginning the meeting, as we typically do, I think we can actually do this now. A little bit of a, if we can have the public input slide, this will give us a minute or two. We always start our meetings with an opportunity for the public to provide any input or questions that they may have. I'm not seeing that slide up yet. Should I be?
Give it a minute, Catherine. I think Jackie's working on that.
Okay.
Ryan, you said were going to screen share tonight, so that's why I didn't have it up.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's see.
It gives the public a few minutes to decide if they'd like to say something. It's always good to give them a little time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We can just make this open to everybody if there is any other public comment. So we know that that's the segment as we pull up the slides.
Right. Typically, there would be, if someone wanted to make a comment, they would put their name in the chat room. I don't know who's monitoring that, but yeah, is there anyone in the chat?
Nothing in
There's no one at the time.
Okay. Diane, do you have your hand up or? No, it's okay. Okay. See, I'm trying to be so sensitive these days. All right, so we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which are the announcements. And Ryan, if you'd be so kind as to take us through the announcements for tonight, if you can.
Okay.
That would be
We're looking
great.
just to pull up the packet here. Hold on a second. Bear with. Okay. Okay, and okay, so let me just start this up. Okay, we've been through the public.
There you go.
So we're there on that. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start. So we can start to go through some of the announcements.
Yes, please.
So we have some board and committee openings, specifically one opening on the Community Preservation Committee, one opening on the Council on Aging Board, one opening on the Hamilton Wenham Community Access and Media Board. We get two openings on the Iron Rail Commission, one's for 1-year term and one opening for a 3-year term. And the last piece is for the WISH committee, where we've got 2 openings, and those are 2 3-year terms. So next item, I kept this up here, the Citizens Leadership Academy. I'd like to discuss this some more with the board because we've had some recent news on this that makes me question whether or not we're going to be able to do this for this year. So just want to have this here as a temporary flag that we're going to come back to later in the meeting for the announcements.
Okay.
The Town Government Study Committee is working on a survey, and the survey, they're seeking some input from residents on this. I'm going to ask Jackie, do they have, is the link to the survey available on the website, Jackie?
No, not yet. It'll be available closer to the date of the public forum.
Okay.
So if residents can hang tight, but we're eager to hear their feedback, but not ready to receive it yet.
Okay. And I believe the Town Government Study Committee actually has another meeting scheduled for tomorrow as well, if anybody who's watching it is interested. We are having a September 11th, 20th anniversary commemoration event that's taking place at the fire department on Friday, September 10th at 10 a.m. We're asking residents to lower their flags to half staff on Saturday, September 11th. And if anyone in town would like to join us, this is going to be something with an event with, I believe, our pastor from the church next door, as well as with our public safety team. So it's hard to believe that 20 years has gone by since this event. And, I'm glad the town is doing something to commemorate it, and we encourage the public to join us for that event. Lastly, we have up here our special election. We have the primary is scheduled for September 2nd, and the election is scheduled for November 30th. I noticed that Trudy was on this, our town clerk. Trudy, I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add to this that you might want to highlight, but let me know if that's the case.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Can.
Okay, so I'd just like to add that nomination papers are still available for anybody that's in this district, which you can see on the screen what it includes. The nomination papers are available, and they need to be returned to the appropriate town clerk of their community no later than September 21st, 5 p.m. We will be doing vote by mail and absentee voting. There will be no in-person early voting for this election. So anybody that has submitted an application this year and checked off all elections, I'll be reaching out to them to see what ballot they need for the primary. And anybody else who needs to vote by mail or absentee can certainly go to our website, the town's website. I've got a link that they can download those applications. The voting will take place at Town Hall for both elections from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I've also got on the website last day voter registration dates for both elections. If you're not registered or if you're new to town, you need to update your address or change your name or anything like that. So all that information is on the town's website with links. So that's it.
Good. Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you.
Just a few other quick things. Yesterday commemorated the town's 378th birthday. We had a nice cake here in Town Hall to commemorate the event. Heard a lot of bad jokes about the town's age and how she looks. But we did have a nice little event here in town, and wanted to remind the board and the public that that happened. So we were fortunate to have Gary there, and it was a small but nonetheless meaningful event for us to kind of get staff together and remind ourselves that the town is another year older. So, and she's doing well. The other thing I wanted to bring to the board's attention is that Jackie had informed me yesterday that she has accepted and has been appointed the new town administrator in the town of Middleton. And I'd just like to say that, this is a great opportunity for Jackie. I know for myself and staff, we're all very happy for her for this chance. And I know, having worked 6 years in Middleton, it's a great community, and a lot of the staff there. And I think, Jackie, you're going to do great. So I want to just express my sincere appreciation to Jackie for her roughly 6 years of contributions to the town. And for myself in particular, for the last 2 months that I've been TA, how helpful Jackie has been in helping me navigate things. So my sincere thanks to you, Jackie. And I wanted to turn it over to you and see if you wanted to say a few things to the board.
Thank you, Ryan. Yes, so I will be moving to the community of Middleton as their assistant town administrator and human resources director. I will be here for a few more weeks. My last day will be October 8th. So this is not yet goodbye, but I do want to thank the board and That includes the select board as well as all the other boards and committees that I get to serve in the community. In the unique role I've had here and the way I've transitioned over my time here, I've gotten to meet a wide variety of residents, and I'm sincerely sad to be leaving the community and the residents. It's been a great place to grow and a great place to learn. And I'm just going to be wrapping some things up over the next few weeks. I'm happy to check in with folks about anything before that. But I just want to say thank you. And I will not be too far away in Middleton. So if folks are welcome to come and say hello. And I'll still see some of you on some of our regional work that we do. So I won't be too far from Wenham, but thank you all sincerely for the last 6 years. It's been really great here. This is not goodbyes yet, so 4 more
So
weeks.
we won't take the opportunity to say goodbye yet, or all of the thank yous that we probably have, but we'll do that another time. I'm still in denial, but we do appreciate everything that you've done, and we congratulate you. And we'll have more. It will come up in another meeting, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So with that announcement behind us, Ryan, I think you're still on.
Okay. Again, Jackie, congratulations. So
Yes,
well deserved. So the board had asked. We developed a little bit of an activity update and things that I was working on or going to be working on the month of August. So here we are into September. So just wanted to provide the board with a quick overview of the things that we've been working on. And regarding litigation, we had a discussion about that earlier in executive session. So I think the board has been kept up to date on that item. Longfellow Road, we are still waiting on a document from town council. I plan to follow up probably after this meeting so that the board then can set up a meeting with the neighborhood and to discuss the matter further with them. DPW director transition plan, that's still a work in progress. I think there are further discussions I'd like to have with the board in terms of discussions that I've had with the current director and others regarding that. So that's more of something I have been working on, but want to have further conversations with you after that. Draft policies we're continuing to work through. As you'll see later in the agenda, under old business, we've got the audit policy, investment policy, and sick leave bank policies that are being updated or at least being put before the board for your approval tonight. And we're going to continue to work that through. This is something that Jackie's been doing a lot of work on. So this will be one of those topics that we'll have to really concentrate on before she leaves to make sure that we close out that loop for the board. In the Hamilton request to reopen the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District Regional Agreement. This is something that I think Catherine's going to hit on in her update, so I'll take a pass on that. The plans for public meeting configurations via Zoom, that is also on the agenda, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the meeting under old business item. I'm looking down here, item I in our agenda. So, we'll be able to give you an overview of what we're looking to do there. Wage and classification study, we have a draft developed internally. Jackie and I are working on just making some tweaks to that, and we hope to get that out in the next few days. So that'll be a request for proposals for consultants to do this type of work. I think we've been able to, Jackie and I, between working on that draft, I think we've got something good and that will work well for the town moving forward. Regarding potential staffing changes in the assessor's office, I've had some conversations with the Board of Assessors about what our plan is. Currently, there's a vacancy in the assessor's office. And what right now we've been able to identify some supplemental support from other assessors' offices to help us get through this time. And that is our current plan. We are also going to be having further conversations regarding potential shared services of our assessor's office with the town of Hamilton. We are going to be having a similar conversation with the Council on Aging regarding some potential shared services with them as well. So both of those items are in process, but they are going to be first vetted through the respective boards, for the assessor's office, through the Board of Assessors, and for the Council on Aging through our Council on Aging. I believe they're meeting, targeted to have a meeting on September 25th. And I plan to attend that meeting and begin to walk the Council on Aging through that and see whether or not there may be some good opportunities for us to share some services on that end. Next item, steps in hiring the executive assistant to the TA. So in that case, you have a updated job description. That is also further along in the tonight's agenda that we'll be discussing. I think I'll hold off to talk to that during that portion of the meeting. And as far as the conservation agent, we are still scheduling and doing interviews on that front. We're trying to make some progress. This is our part-time conservation agent, and trying to make some progress on that. But we've started interviews and we're continuing on with that. So last thing is staffing responsibilities in town hall. Prior to Jackie giving her notice yesterday, that may have been a different conversation, but part of the thing that I'm looking for some guidance from the board is reposting for that position. And there have been some discussions that I've had with board members over the last 2 days regarding what that potential title should be. So sort of looking right now for some guidance from the board regarding what we want to do with that slot. I will say, in terms of what we've gone through with the executive assistant to the TA, I feel good about what is being proposed to you tonight. That's been updated based upon feedback from town staff, as well as Gary was generous enough to provide me with a memo that Nikki had provided him with about things that she was working on, and that has been supplemented. So I feel good about what the executive assistant to the town administrator job position and job description looks like. And I think that my recommendation to the board would be to proceed forward and hire for that position. But I also believe that there's an opportunity here with Jackie moving on to reconsider some of the, if this provides an opportunity for us to look at this position and potentially rethink the title. So, with that, maybe pass this along to the board to at least give me some sort of initial direction as to, how you might want to proceed.
I'll just start very briefly, and we'll, in my conversation with Ryan, I've just requested a job description for what this person's job would be, so that we'd have a little bit more idea. And then I've personally asked if, of course, for him to make any recommendations he thinks are appropriate relative to that position and all that does. So those are my thoughts on that. Diane, do you have, I'm sorry, Gary?
No, Diane first.
Okay. I was trying to shake it up a little,
I know, I wasn't ready for that.
I know, sorry.
I agree. I would like to see if Ryan can put together exactly, meld the position as he needs to, what he wants to do and what he would like to call it, and do that kind of as quickly as possible so we can get it right out there.
Great, thank you.
Gary, sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
certainly. We know that both Nikki and Jackie exceeded their job descriptions by multiple factors. So I think it's a good time to have a very distinct job description for both those positions. And I think that for Jackie's position, we ought to consider particularly the title that looking at the market out there, that if we think that assistant town administrator attracts a wider range of applicants as opposed to a super, permitting office, administrative sales, whatever title, that we ought to formalize that more in line with what other municipalities use for the work that's being done.
That's helpful. I can get that information back to the board. So I appreciate the guidance. Thank you. So
Shoot for that for the next meeting.
absolutely.
I'm sure you'd like to do that.
Well, that's right. Well, it's I think everybody knows, what this means with Jackie moving on and the loss that'll be for the town. So as such, yes, to get clarity on this matter is something I'd like to try to do as soon as possible. So thank you. That's great guidance. And I will, we will have something to report back to you at your next meeting. So thank you. So with that said, we have the chair's report and the members' report.
Okay, I have just a short report, and then I may make a request to move the meeting around a little, but just two things. One that Ryan has already referred to, and I just wanted to make this in the form of an announcement before we have a discussion at our workshop, because it's been around for a while. So a few weeks ago, the town of Hamilton wrote to the regional school district requesting that they open their regional agreement with, I didn't really see a list of what items they would like to have changed, but just a general response. They also wrote to us asking us to write a similar letter to the school committee. Honestly, I would like to have a little bit more discussion about that, and I'm not sure tonight is the night to do that. I think what we do, or what we choose to do, or what we choose to ask of the school committee is independent, because our needs and our situation is independent from Hamilton's. But certainly, I think more importantly, it's a big topic and it's an important one. And so with the permission of the board, given that information, I would like to be sure that we have that as a discussion item on our workshop, so that we can decide, do we agree? Do we want to do this? And if we do, how do we want to proceed? I haven't heard anything from the school district about their response to Hamilton's letter. That doesn't surprise me. They're pretty busy with their own thing. But anyway, I'll get to you, Gary. I see you. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that there had been a letter written from Hamilton, and my intention would be to address its priority and our desires at the workshop. Okay, that's all. Gary, go ahead.
At the workshop sounds good. And I noticed in the audience, we have our distinguished representative, Brad Hill, standing by.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make this short. I've got one more really quick thing, which I think Brad will appreciate. And then if it's all okay with the board, I'd like to move down to an item in new business that involves Brad. But before we invite him to speak, another sad situation, I don't literally have the email in front of me because I was a little tight for time, but we had a very nice complimentary email written to the town by the O'Shea family. Most of you know the O'Sheas. Ann O'Shea was writing to thank us, in particular to thank the fire department for a call that they made and some help that they gave to Mr. O'Shea. She was very, very appreciative of the compassionate and kind and competent way that call was handled, and she wrote a lovely email, which I can forward to folks. But I don't have it in front of me to read. But we don't often get that. Folks don't often get thanks. I'm sure Ryan has already shared that with the fire department, but I wanted to share that with the board and the public, and also thank the fire department for the work that they do with all of our residents. But in particular, these are long-standing residents. So she was very kind to write that email, and I thank her for writing it.
Yeah, I can get that out to everybody, Catherine. So
Yeah,
yes.
sorry. So anyway, so that's it for my reports. If I may, I would like to jump down to new business. And the first item, it's called an update from State Representative Bradford Hill. So I'd like to welcome Representative Hill to the meeting and turn the floor to him for his update. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's nice to see everybody. I wish we were all in person, but this will do because it's nice to see your faces, which I haven't seen in quite some time because of COVID. Usually by now, Senator Tar and I would have stopped in to give you an update of what's going on at the state level. So I'm going to keep it brief because I think most of you know what is going on at the state level, which is good things are happening there in terms of revenue for our cities and towns and for the state as well. All of our taxes, whether it be sales tax, income tax, whatever the case may be, are all coming in above and beyond what we had anticipated for FY22, which is a good thing for our cities and towns because it has allowed for us to keep with what we had put forth in our state budget, which were increases for all of our cities and towns, either through unrestricted government aid or through the Chapter 70 formula. And also, as Ryan knows, we finally got you our Chapter 90 funding, which took a little while, but something that, towns like Wenham depend upon. We also are working very closely with the federal government. As you know, there have been some bills that have been passed that are going to help our towns. And I think if I saw the agenda correctly, you're going to be talking about some of those funds tonight and how they can be used and where they can be used from the feds. And it's a good chunk of change. It's not small money. So I'm happy to report that overall, things are very, very good at the state and locally. Ryan and I, we met briefly a few weeks ago, and then we've continued our conversations after that meeting to talk about local projects. And even though I'm going to be leaving you next week as your state representative, that doesn't mean that those projects just go away. We are going to continue working with my partners in state government to ensure that those projects move forward. Route 97, which we'd all like to see repaved, is still on the DOT list to be done at some point. And as is the case with many of my other communities, we never know when they're going to come in and help. They just come in and help with sometimes no notice, which is similar to what happened over in Manchester and what happened over in Topsfield. So they are well aware that the town of Wenham wants to see that project done, and they're not going to forget it just because I've left, because I'm not going to leave until we get that thing paid. Or I should say, I'm not going to stop advocating until we can get that project done. And Ryan and I had some very nice conversations about what's going on in front of Town Hall with Route 1A and seeing that project move forward. And I had discussions with Senator Tar about that and his staff. And they, of course, are going to be there advocating for whatever you might need moving forward with that particular project. So, Madam Chair, in short, that's a little bit of an update for the town of Wenham and what's been going on. And again, I was very worried during COVID that we were going to see a lot of decreases in revenue. Many of our businesses have, in fact, struggled throughout the Commonwealth, but certainly around our area. And that, red flags were flying all over the place. But thankfully, in reality, a lot of those businesses are starting to see more people come back. Restaurants are starting to see more people come back. I think one of the biggest issues we're finding is these businesses can't find people to work. And unfortunately, a couple have had to close because they haven't been able to get workers to come in and help them out. But overall, the economy is booming here in Massachusetts. Overall, the summer was good. And I think moving into the fall, we're going to see as strong and robust an economy as we have seen. But I think the biggest worry we're all going to have, whether it's at your level, state level, or feds, is what happens with COVID-19 and, the new strain that's coming out, what that means to the safety of our constituents and the citizens that we serve. And of course, we are going to keep an eye out. And I know Ryan and the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen are going to keep an eye out on that and be very engaged to ensure the safety of all of our citizens moving forward. And the state will continue to do that. I think Governor Baker is starting to make some decisions, that are affecting the local level. He had been hesitant to do that because he wants to see you folks make these decisions. What may work in Wenham may not work in a Middleton or a North Andover. So he was concerned about doing a one size fits all, but some of the decisions he's making now, are just that, whether it be schools or possible municipal action moving forward. So that is a little bit of the update. And Ryan, did I forget anything?
I think you covered it. I think you covered it, Brad.
But more importantly, this is literally going to be one of my last meetings ever as your state legislator. And I could not just let one of your meetings go by without coming on and saying thank you. This has been a great 22 years. And the partnerships that I've had in the town of Wenham are partnerships and friendships that I will have forever. They're not going to end on the 15th of September. They're going to continue for a lifetime. Some of the works or work projects that we all had and worked on together, I think we can all drive around Wenham and be very proud of how our partnerships have worked for the citizens of the town of Wenham. And it's something I'm going to miss. I love the people. I grew up in Hamilton, as you know, and had many, many friends in the town of Wenham going through high school that I still have to this day. And my love of Wenham is something that is never going to ever go away in my lifetime. So I wanted to say, Catherine and Mr. Cheeseman and Diane, thank you for the partnership. I know there's been many select people before you, many town managers, town administrators before you that I've worked with, but collectively, this has been a partnership. This hasn't been an individual legislative act. This has been a partnership that included a lot of people, and it's something that I'm forever grateful for. And I want to thank all of you, and through you to the citizens of Wenham, for giving me this honor over the last 22 years.
Well, I think we certainly congratulate you on your new position, being appointed to the Gaming Commission. And I think the board will speak for themselves, but I know I don't think thank you is even a strong enough word or phrase for the way at least I feel about the work that you've done and that we've done together. When I started out as a fledgling school committee member, you were just starting out as a rep. And so 20 years of working together to doing everything from lobbying for school, funding to here we are today. An incredible amount of work that you've done, and in an incredible way. I've walked through the State House enough times at your side to know and to see the relationship that you have as a member of a minority party in the State House with so many people, and the good work that you've done and the relationship you've built. Truly, awesome, astonishing. So we will miss you. Please don't be too much of a stranger. Thank you again for everything that you've done, and congratulations.
So
Gary or Diane. Yeah.
Can you imagine? I've been going down memory lane. I started cleaning out my office last week. And as you bring up you started out in the school committee when I first started as a rep. My very first meeting, if I'm not mistaken, was up in the band room in the middle school, Miles River. And I remember I had my aide with me, and we had a whole stack of white lined paper, and we were taking down notes feverishly to learn about education. So anything I learned about Chapter 70 started in that room 22 years ago. And I remember Catherine was there at that meeting.
I do remember that meeting. That was a memorable meeting. There were many in between, but that one wasn't particularly memorable.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I'll just add in, I'm sure all the citizens of Wenham say thank you, Brad, and extend their best wishes on your next job. You've been a great advocate for the town and all the communities around here. And we certainly appreciate the work over an exemplary 22-year career. We couldn't have had a better representative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary.
And I always like to go last, so I can say I agree with everything everybody else said. In my short term in municipal government, it has been really a pleasure to work along with you and learn from you. So I thank you for that, and I hope you enjoy your next position.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you too for stopping by tonight. Brad, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your, I'm sure, even busier than usual schedule to spend a little time with us. It's nice to see you. And we hope to see you again sometime soon.
You will for sure. As long as that Pingree Park is still alive and well and baseball games are being played, you will see me around, I promise.
Maybe you'll be umping from my grandchildren at some point. That would be fun. But yeah.
More good memories.
Yeah, great.
Well, thank you
All
very
right.
much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Brad. Thank you for coming.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Good
You
evening.
too.
Okay.
Bye. I realized that to get to Brad, I skipped, at least in reports, select board members report. So I certainly will go back to that. Gary or Diane, do you have anything that you would like to report in the reports before we move on?
Nothing to report per se. Are we going to have a discussion later about volunteering to lead Citizen Academy sessions?
Yeah, I made a note of that. I was,
Mhm.
might as well do that now. I don't know, Ryan, if you've had, I mean, this is all new information, and I don't know if you have
Right.
anything you can share with us relative to the status of the Citizens Academy, given
Right.
Jackie's resignation.
Yeah, so, as the board knows, with Jackie's resignation, that this does seem to, it does create an issue for us in the sense that the time that Jackie would otherwise be spending on organizing that event is really time that we probably need reallocated to other things for Jackie to be able to clean up what remains outstanding. So it is unfortunately, as a consequence of that and lack of capacity, my recommendation to the board is that we take a pause on it for this year and see what things look like, and maybe try to do it again next year.
A sad reality, but it seems like the prudent thing to do.
Perhaps
at
we
this
can,
point.
I know we've had at least a dozen sign up for it. Perhaps we can get that done in the spring with volunteers. I think Jackie can confirm, but I think after these many years, she has a pretty well written script. And a lot of the work is by the department heads coming into briefing. So perhaps I as one and perhaps the other two board members could volunteer to chair one of those meetings, and perhaps Ryan, and I know the mock meeting, maybe Roger, the moderator, could chip in. So it'd be nice to have that done before the next town meeting for the new folks in town. So we'll put that back to Ryan to take a look at.
Okay. Diane, did you have anything to report?
I don't have anything really am I on mute? No, I'm not mute. I don't have anything really to report. I do like Gary's idea, and I'd be happy to volunteer to do any of those Citizens Leadership Academy classes. So we'll leave it to Ryan, but I'm in.
Okay. I'd have to agree with that, but I think we have to see what happens, and look forward to Ryan's how it looks at that point in time. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. It's in this case, minutes approval. I think we can go right ahead and take a motion on this one. Which I think,
I move to approve the minutes of August 3rd, 2021, August 6th, 2021, and August 24th, 2021.
and is there a second?
Second, but with one comment. I
Yep.
noticed that in the second paragraph, starting with 24 August, we need to correct the fact that there's no longer an audit committee.
Catherine Tinsley, do you see that?
I will address
And
that. Thank you.
the job titles for job assignments for each of the select board members. We'll just have to delete that. Otherwise,
Will
I
do.
second the motion.
Okay, any other comments or corrections? If not, we'll vote on this consent agenda. Diane,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Catherine, yes. So unanimous for the consent agenda. Thank you so much, Catherine, as always, for the minutes, and Diane for reviewing them all.
Mhm. Thank you for your help.
Madam Chair,
Anytime.
I noticed that Chief DiNapoli is on the call. Would it be possible to take his item out of order?
I suppose. Actually, I can barely see him on the call, but yes, of course we can. So that item is new business item E, and it's a review and potential approval of a donation for the Wenham Police Department from Iron Tree Service. Thank you for being here, Chief DiNapoli. Perhaps you can just give us a little background on this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm in the car at a wake about an hour and a half
Oh,
away, so hopefully
sorry.
the service is okay.
It's great.
So this is Iron Tree Service. They graciously offered to donate a couple televisions for the police department, which we desperately need. We have a new scheduling software system and a call tracking system, and we would use the televisions for training as well. It's going to be a huge help. They'll definitely be used right away. And Mr. Mastranzi from Iron Tree, went out of his way to really, help the department out in a tough budget time.
Questions for Chief on this? Diane, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it's very nice.
Gary?
No, just wanted to say thank you to the gracious donation from Iron Tree Service to help out our police department. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you for the donation to be. I would just make one comment before we take a motion. I think for clarity, the motion probably needs to say accept the donation of 2 televisions from the Iron Tree Service so that we understand what it is. But I have no other questions or concerns.
And I do have the specifics of the TV if you need them, if you need that for the motion too.
I don't think we do. I think if we identify what they are and the value, I think that's all that we need actually to approve the donation. So I think we're set as long as we identify what the items are in case someone looks back later and says, so what was that donation?
All right.
So that being said, can we have a motion, please?
Hey, I move to accept the donation from the Iron Tree Service to the town of Wenham of 2 television sets for the Wenham Police Department with a total value of $899.98.
Second.
Any further comment or questions? Or if not, again, thank you, Chief, for giving us a little update on that. Congratulations on the donation. We'll take a vote before we actually congratulate you. Relative to voting, Gary, your vote?
Yes, and our thanks to the Iron Tree Service.
Yes, Diane?
Yes.
And yes, from Catherine, and thanks. And I'm glad that you have that technology to help you out.
Thank you very much to the whole
Right.
board. I appreciate it. They will get used.
Yeah. And thank you for coming. I know this was a little bit of an interruption and a difficult evening, but appreciate you being here, Chief.
Anytime. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could insert myself again, Mary Beth Ting is on the call, and it would be okay to take her item out of order so that we can give her that opportunity.
Yeah, I was just looking at the rest of the agenda to see if there was anything that fed into that, but I think the old business item F really covers everything that we have relative to health. So this is the Wenham Board of Health COVID-19 update and recommendations. Public health nurse Mary Beth Ting is on the call, and I believe the chair of our Board of Health, Andrew Ting, is also on the call or at the meeting. But I believe I'm turning this over to Mary Beth. Is that correct?
I believe so. So whichever one of the Tings wants to speak first. How about that?
Yeah. We leave it to the Tings.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for your attention. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I had to just pull over. I'm driving to get my follow-up COVID test after international travel.
Welcome back.
The Well, thank you very much. The last 2 weeks have seen significant case increase in the town of Wenham. We've had 15 cases over the last 2 weeks. To my quick perusal and count, it looks like 8 of those cases have been over at Gordon College, and the other 7 have been town residents. They are being followed up. We're doing well. We don't have any current hospitalizations to my knowledge. So we are working with our partners at Gordon College. They are doing a good job isolating and quarantining and identifying the close contacts. In other Gordon College COVID-related news, on September the 2nd, we held a successful vaccination clinic where over 65 individuals from that community were vaccinated, which is wonderful. And I was vaccinating along with my colleague Rachel Lee at the Hamilton COA, which we do every week on Wednesday between 3:30 and 6:30. And today we vaccinated, I believe it was 15 individuals. So I would just encourage all of us, if you have not been vaccinated, that is the best possible thing that you can do for public health right now. Aside from that, it's stay home when you're sick, wear a well-fitting face covering when you're indoors and when you cannot, be distanced from others, and good hand hygiene as well. Those are all the key messages that are unchanged. I don't know if the board has any particular questions that I could address for you at this moment.
Diane or Gary, any particular questions relative to case counts?
Just a question. Do we know what the typical venue was where the transmission's been occurring?
I can't see, I have not done the investigation for the Gordon College. I'll have to get back to you on that. I mean, that's just, congregate living. It's not unusual for campuses. And due to the nature of the transmissions, I'd be reluctant to say the common factors in the town transmission. There are some trends, but I wouldn't want to discuss that publicly just in terms of jeopardizing people's privacy.
All right, thank you.
I think it's very important that, and thank you for the work that you obviously done all together, but especially at Gordon right now, we separate out the numbers for reporting purposes for obvious reasons. But those cases, those folks do circulate in the community and surrounding communities. So, getting the full picture of both together is an important number, and it's a little, I guess, a little bit unfortunate that the numbers are going up, but we're not unique in that, I don't think. So that's really what I had for questions relative to case count. Diane, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so I think that covers current case update, letter A, and then we have recommendations, I think, from the Board of Health on 2 other items.
Yep. Hi. So Andrew Ting, I'm the chair of the Board of Health for the town of Wenham. And at our last Board of Health meeting, we had passed a recommendation for the reinstitution of all individuals wearing a face covering in municipal buildings. As you heard from Mary Beth Ting, the number of cases of COVID-19 have started to rise again from the summertime, and that is not unique to our town. It's occurring sort of across the state. These are both individuals who are non-vaccinated and vaccinated. Fortunately, we don't have any residents who are inpatient currently, which is, again, one of the main factors or the reasons behind the vaccination is to prevent significant or serious disease that causes hospitalization and or death. And so continuing to promote vaccination is going to be an important thing. So last week we had recommended to this board that that you also pass our recommendation to have face coverings in municipal buildings. With that, as a second part, which came to us, was can we start having public meetings back into town hall or in the public facilities within Wenham that boards and committees meet? And so we had a long discussion this morning actually about that. And it was, at least from my my reasoning, and the board agreed that, face coverings and social distancing inside of 6 feet or more would be the recommendation if any kind of public meeting were to occur inside. But given that these are open meetings, to guarantee that any individual of the public would like to attend the meeting when there could be a constraint would be difficult, if not impossible. And so it is our recommendation from the board that in-person meetings not yet occur, and that we would just have to watch what happens with COVID-19 over the next several weeks to months to see if maybe there will be a decline and we could look at that situation. But if our recommendation is to try to mitigate as much as possible with face coverings and social distancing inside, my concern was, would any venue be able to allow for the public to be involved with an open meeting? So I bring that up to the board for your discussion of what you think. And we again met this morning and recommended that that those meetings between boards and committees not yet reoccur in person.
So we have two separate but
Related.
very closely related issues, two recommendations as written here that we need to discuss. One is that the Board of Health is recommending that face covering requirements be put back in place in municipal buildings. And the second recommendation is that we continue meeting remotely for until something changes. So I think perhaps we can have comments or discussions about both of those together, and then we'll make some decisions. So Gary, would you like to have any questions or comments? Or
No, I think that given the risk that can lead actually to death, that we must follow a very conservative route here. And I would say that the board ought to institute the mask and protection for anybody entering the municipal buildings. And also that given that we've demonstrated our Zoom capabilities over the last few months, that let's just continue in this current mode until we at least get a few more weeks of understanding of how bad this Delta variant is going to be.
Diane?
So I also agree. It's very unfortunate, but I do think that we need to go back to these mitigation strategies for the safety of everybody, really. So I'm in agreement with the Board of Health.
The Board of Health has always had a very thoughtful discussion, I thought, this morning on this issue. And the more I agree completely. I think there are some pure public health mitigation issues, certainly around the face coverings for both employees and visitors of all of the public buildings in town. And relative to the meetings, when you start to think about, even if we had the space, when you start to think about meetings where the board might be in public or might be in person with masks on, trying to Zoom to the public, logistically and from a health point of view, it doesn't make sense to me. So I agree as well that we'll have to hold off, that we should probably hold off having public meetings in person, and that we should continue with Zoom. We do also have to, and I'm hoping that we have some language from or we can get some language from earlier motions that did this, but we would have to decide when each of these. I think it's two motions, one for the masks and one for the public meetings, and we would have to decide when that would be effective, and just be clear on which boards and committees and which meetings. So I don't know, Ryan or Jackie, if you have any of the. We have voted things like this before, and I think a lot of thought had gone into the wording. Do we have any of that, or should we?
I am pulling up the last time we voted this. I'm just not as fast as you're saying it.
You know, for years people have told me I speak too quickly. I guess that applies to all of us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So certainly that's the way to go. When you think that just the numbers, a few weeks ago, if I remember correctly, Mary Beth was reporting 0 new cases or 1 new case. And to say we're right back up to 15, that's such a dramatic change that we really need to take the precautions to protect everyone.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the science doesn't seem to say that this, other than people getting vaccinated, and even then, until enough people get vaccinated, it doesn't sound like it's going to go back down by itself. Okay.
This was the mask order voted by both the Board of Health and the Select Board back in April of 2020. So this is what we were using for a majority of the pandemic from the start. So this is not perfect because we're not currently in the state of emergency, and that changes because this is now just an action of the Select Board versus a shared action with the Board of Health and with the Select Board. But it just gives you a sense of what we were talking about, which we would be only applying to municipal buildings versus to the essential businesses. So, but just to give you a sense of what we had done the last time.
Can you make that a little bit bigger, Jackie?
Say when.
That's
That
good.
looks good.
So
Gary, I think you could make a motion out of that.
Yes. So,
exactly what I was going
well,
to say.
Jackie very handily has highlighted the yellow portions here.
Yeah.
So a quick question to Ryan. I think we have, the plastic partitions and so forth are in place. We have saved the signage, I believe. So we could probably make this effective Friday or Monday. What's practical?
I think, once the board votes this, we could probably make it effective Friday morning, I think would be fair.
All right. So I'll make the motion that effective September 10th, 2021, in the town of Wenham, all members of the public entering any essential business must wear a cloth face covering, such as a fabric mask, scarf, or bandana over his or her mouth. All employees of all essential businesses shall wear a face covering when interacting with the public and within 6 feet of a coworker. And any resident or member of the general public entering or exiting a residential unit must wear a face covering while in common areas and communal spaces and must exercise social distancing in those spaces.
Madam Chair, would you? Yes, I was going to say, do we want to consider municipal buildings at this time versus essential businesses?
Yes.
A little bit dated.
Amend every essential business to municipal buildings.
And I don't think we're, are we talking in this instance about residential?
We did at the Housing Authority originally.
Okay.
We haven't received a request from them, so I think I would consider 1 through 3 right now. As 1 and 3. As the language that we want to emulate. I think right now the Housing Authority as a state agency has its own separate guidance that it's governed by.
Could we just use a face cloth, a mask? Could we use the word mask so we don't get scarves and bandanas? Just a mask over the nose and mouth.
Yes, knowing that scarves and bandanas have been shown, I believe Dr. Tingle confirmed as to be less effective. Let's just use the term mask.
Dr. Ting, is it face covering right now that we're using or mask in what in the language that you're seeing coming through medical practices? What's the for the general public? You are muted.
Muted.
Sorry, usually, my experience is in the medical business where masks are the preferred methodology of face covering. Face covering has been the more typical language because it does allow some leeway of both having a quote a surgical mask or medical mask or a fabric mask. I'm not sure, and then Mary Beth probably knows better than me in terms of. I know that fabric mask is preferred over a bandana or scarf, just because they don't sit over the nose and mouth as securely as a mask does, or a face covering has the appearance of a mask. I don't know. Mary Beth can respond. Okay.
I can, yeah, I could suggest, I don't have language right in front of me in the car, but there are some definitions for what a face covering could be. So if you wanted a little sort of face covering with an asterisk, we could provide the board with some language that provides a little definition. Usually what you're looking for is, a multi-layered face covering is most effective in preventing transmission.
All right, so we'll just use the term face covering then?
Yeah, with an asterisk to
Right.
be included by Mary Beth.
So a
Okay.
multi-amended motion, is that acceptable?
Catherine Tinsley, do you have the essence of what we've been trying to say here?
I do.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Basically, we're accepting the recommendations of the Board of Health and instituting this motion. If not, we'll go to a vote. Diane?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Catherine, yes. So thank you for that from the Board of Health. And as of Friday, we will be expecting employees as well as anyone entering any municipal building to have a face covering. Just thought about this. There was some discussion at one point about the fact that employees did not need to wear face coverings if they were in an office by themselves. Is that important for us to include in this motion?
I don't think so. I think it's up to their discretion. They're in an office with the plexiglass, and when they interact with people, they should have a mask on. Right?
Is that what you would expect, Andrew?
Yeah, previously it had been if you were by yourself in a closed room, that you could remove your face covering or mask to either have a Zoom meeting or to do other work. If you were going to be in a common space where potentially somebody could come in, it was recommended that you do keep your face covering on. But again, obviously, if you're on the second floor of Town Hall and you're the only one there, and you know that you're going to be the only one there, then it's essentially a closed room. But otherwise, it would be like the town administrator's office or, what town clerks and such would be considered closed. And then you could remove it. So again, it's sort of, you got to sort of know your surroundings and then just be aware and think.
Be
Okay.
smart.
All right. Be
Ready for a
smart.
second motion then?
Sure.
All right. I move,
A second motion on the masks?
no, on the
Okay,
Zoom
so
meetings.
we're all set with the masks. Yeah,
Right.
ready.
Right, I move that the select board direct that all public meetings, committees and boards continue to be conducted only by Zoom. No in-person meetings for the foreseeable future.
And I presume that when you say all public buildings and all boards and committees, you're including meetings that would, for the library and the Council on Aging, that would sort of round, it's town
Yeah.
hall, council, all public boards and committees. Yeah, that was, I think, a recommendation. Sounds like a motion to me.
I'll second it.
Excuse me.
Any, yeah,
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. This is just Jackie.
hi, Jackie.
Hi. So the library is already posted for tomorrow in person, the library Board of Trustees. So I don't know if it's possible that we can have a friendly amendment that they would be okay to meet tomorrow if they're 6 foot social distance, wearing face coverings. So I don't know if this is also something we could make effective as of Friday, September 10th.
Do we know of any other meetings that are happening tomorrow?
There are several others posted, but that's the only one I am currently aware of that is not going to be on Zoom. The planning board and the town government study committee are both
Oh, right.
posted via Zoom. And then there's 2 meetings that are outside of our realm of control, but post with us that will be left to their own devices. But that's the only Wenham specific meeting that is not posted to Zoom for
All right,
tomorrow.
can I amend the motion to make it effective Friday morning, 10 September 2021?
I think that's a good amendment.
I'll second that.
I would, though, suggest, well, the masks aren't even going into effect until Friday. So we just have hope that the library folks are being careful. Okay. Other comments or questions? If not, we'll move to a vote. Gary,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and Catherine, yes. So we're back to masks and we're going to stay on Zoom. I think it's really until we get new information or recommendations from our Board of Health. We're going to follow your lead on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, yeah, we will continue to meet. We'll update you as new data comes available to us and then make any recommendations as such. But I also want to, if I can quickly put in, I just want to thank Jackie for the service she's had for the board. She's been an amazing person, both the board and the public health nurse and all the Board of Health agents are just thankful that we've had Jackie work with us, and we look forward to her new role over at Middleton. Fortunately, I happen to be working in Middleton,
All right.
so I will get to see her again.
There you go. Okay, anything more on this? Okay, if not, we, I think now are on new business B, update discussion regarding Sunday, September 19th, Shop Local Hamilton Wenham event. Ryan, do you want to kick this one off and then we'll.
Sure. I think this was basically a question among the board, how you wanted to participate in the event, and would you be wanting to be outside here at Town Hall or head up to, mix about. So I think it's just a question for the board, how you wanted to participate and interact with the public at that event.
Right. So if you remember at our meeting or 2 meetings ago, we had a presentation about this Shop Local event that's happening in Hamilton and Wenham. It's 12 to 4 p.m. on Sunday, September 19th. So as Ryan said, I think there are 2 questions. And the first one is, do we wish to and are we able to attend this event in person at the event on Sunday, September 19th? Do we want a table was the way it was actually worded. Different organizations and businesses are going to be having tables. And if yes, then we have a choice of having a table either in Wenham on Town Hall property, or apparently the businesses in general, both from Hamilton and Wenham, are congregating or having their tables in Hamilton on Railroad Ave. So what do we think? Gary, do you have thoughts on whether or if we should participate, have a physical presence?
That's to Diane, but I think with 3 of us, we should be able to cover the 4 hours, one or both places if needed.
A full disclosure, I'm out of town that weekend, so I would attend if I were going to be here, but
Right.
I won't be able to. So I
Right,
don't know
so
if that.
Diane,
We're down to two.
Down to two.
Yeah, I think we should be there. I'll plan to be there. I think, I don't know how crazy it sounds, but I think we should almost have a table in both. Hopefully maybe some department heads would be there too, but we could have some, not paraphernalia, information on a variety of different projects that are going on. We can each be in a different spot, talking up what we do here in Wenham. I can do whatever.
so flip the coin. You want the Hamilton table or the Wenham table?
I think we should do half and half.
Okay.
Are you
very
good for
well.
saying it? Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
so
let's.
we're
so
good
we'll
on
leave-
that.
We'll give it to, it was Natalie, I believe, who had emailed, and we can respond with this information, and then she can give us assignments. And then maybe I'll reach out to some of the department heads. Maybe Gary, you could too, and we could get some information to hand out.
So reach out to the department heads to provide
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Okay, there was also a third question there. Apparently, in Wenham, there's a children's business fair, and they are, at the time that they sent the memo, they were looking for volunteers to help with that. I feel like that's going to be a little tricky if one of you is in Hamilton for the entire time and one of you is in Wenham, but I don't want to presume that you can't do both.
All right.
I say we
so,
can give it up to Natalie and tell her what she needs. I said I could do whatever.
Okay, so Ryan, would you like me to get back to Natalie, or do you want to get back to her?
I can get back to Natalie. That's
Okay.
fine. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get two tables and keep
Yeah,
the board updated.
they did indicate that it was bring your own table. So
Oh,
whatever.
Bring your own table. Okay. All right.
Oh, it
Yeah,
was? Oh, I didn't notice
I
that.
think that's what the memo said.
In that case, no.
No, it says, if you want a table, you will have to bring it yourself.
Okay.
But the event organizers must accommodate and hold the space. So they obviously need to have our decision to hold a space for us. But it sounds to me from her memo, and you can maybe confirm that with her, Ryan, but it sounds like it's a
Sure.
bring your own table situation. I guess
can
I would
follow
say
up on
chair.
that with you. Okay. Sure.
Okay, so we will have a presence at that event on the 19th.
Mhm.
Okay, the next under new business is a review of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and prospective opportunities for Wenham. And I believe, Ryan, you have some information for us.
Sure. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
I provided an update to the board, a memorandum to the board sort of outlining really the two troughs of funding the town has access to. The first is the CARES Act funding that has been provided to the town. That's worth about $466,000 to the town. Specifically, that addresses things that are directly related to impacts that the town impacts of COVID-19 has had on the town. So specifically things we've been looking to do with in terms of contact tracing, COVID-19 testing sites, vaccination clinics, supplemental cleaning supplies in town hall, protective shields, all the signage we were talking about, Gary, earlier that we still unfortunately have up and are still using. And of course, all Zoom related costs to be able to move our meetings remotely. Gives you a flavor that the CARES Act was really more oriented toward the frontline costs of the pandemic, that immediate and operating costs, if you will, associated with this. So we have those funds available basically for the end of the calendar year that we will have access to, much of which we have have already spent but are continuing to tap into. The new component that the town will have access to is the American Rescue Plan Act, which the town will have access to, we anticipate funding in the amount of about $1,578,000. So it's a pretty significant amount of money. It's really a unique thing in the sense that it's really a once in a lifetime funding source for us to take advantage of. So, the categories that the ARPA funding, which is what this is called, is extended for our use or allowed for our use, and needs to be obligated by December 31st, 2024. But basically for public health expenditures, COVID-19 mitigation efforts, medical expenses, that sort of thing. A lot of that has been covered through the CARES Act. So we've been able to address much of those immediate needs. But we'd also say that some of the things that it would be available for would be aid to communities and populations, hardest hit by the crisis, that supporting targeted groups, hotel workers, things like that, and trying to deal with longstanding public health, economic, and educational disparities. Another category would be able to provide premium pay for essential workers and supplemental support through them. So what we really see with ARPA here is that this is more, if you think of CARES as more of the immediate funding source from the federal government to directly address any COVID-related issues. The ARPA funding allows us to continue on with that as necessary, but it also expands it, most specifically allowing investment in water, sewer, stormwater, and broadband infrastructure. So that is sort of the catch-all at the end in terms of what the town could potentially look at to expend funds on, especially to where that first trough of spending with the CARES Act really, we hope that most of the public health emergency will be over by, or at least the worst of it will be over by the end of this calendar year, December 31st, 2021, such that it would open up some potential opportunities for us to really begin to look critically on some areas that we haven't spent money on. So some of that in thinking about what we may be looking toward spending that on. One thing is you can use the ARPA money to address funding shortfalls. As some of the board members are aware, that we've had some issues with tenants at Iron Rail in terms of paying their leases. There may be a possibility there of filling some of that gap. In regard to stormwater infrastructure, the town is working on the MS4 permit. We've developed a capital plan with that. So with that, this could be a funding source for us to do targeted improvements in that area without having to utilize free cash or other funding sources from town meeting. We also could be looking at another key piece, which is an investment into our water infrastructure, and that could be water treatment and, of course, our distribution system. Currently, our system is approximately, a townwide system is about 70 years old. With that distribution system, roughly speaking, these pipes have a useful life of about 100 years. So, as we said earlier, at 378, the town's looking, going to be showing its age at times, and this is no exception. So we need to begin to start thinking about, understanding where our vulnerabilities are on the water side and what we can do to maybe begin to first understand and analyze what those needs are, and then later think about maybe making some tactical investments into the system to ensure appropriate redundancy. Finally, we may be looking also at some of the our IT needs, and as it relates to the broadband aspect that was mentioned. Some of that is based sort of piggybacking on some of the work that Jackie's been doing with part of our regional IT agreement with the town of Danvers and other municipalities in the North Shore. So the big theme, I've shared this with the Finance Committee, this memo as well, is that we are, this is sort of the first component here to introduce what that spending might be on. We, of course, will be working with the FinCom and the Select Board as that advances and as we make some suggestions to you, how you could be making some of the, utilizing these funds. But, while there's nothing, immediate on our part, we are just fortunate in this case, as Representative Hill had mentioned, that both the state and the federal government really have stepped up for us in this case. And we really, it's helping us get through this difficult time, not only for the town, but for the entire country. And, the hope is that, we could really take advantage of some of this ARPA funding to help address some, known needs that we have on the stormwater and water side, and really, use it as a way to prime the pump, if you will, to make some important investments on both that side. So I don't know if the board has any other questions on that, but stay tuned. There's more to be coming up in that direction. This may be something to incorporate into our goals session to talk about where those, what sort of investments you want to be looking at. But this is the beginning of the process to outline for everybody, and we know that there will be further conversations to come in that regard. So I don't know if the board has any other questions. Be happy to try to answer them.
Questions for Gary? For Ryan?
I
Gary?
think a good topic for our working group to start off. Certainly need to get input through the town staff from DPW on the MS4 and also from the Water Commission on their long-term priorities.
Diane?
No comments. It's good.
Yeah, it's a really good list. I think obviously we need to maximize as much use as much of this money as is feasible for us. But thank you for putting that together, and thank you also for including the FinCom. This obviously is sort of a joint effort, and we just look forward to any, as you get further recommendations.
And Catherine, at that point, you're exactly right. Our objective is to spend as much of it as we can and make sure to take advantage of this very unique opportunity.
Right.
This really is once in a generation for us to get this kind of funding opportunity. I often describe stormwater, if you have water and sewer, storm water is often the forgotten third utility. And as we've seen from some of the flooding that's come out of the recent hurricane, that these are things that we can't simply ignore. We have to reflect the fact that we are in a changing global climate and need to begin thinking about what the implications are for stormwater and how we can make sure that our rivers and streams are as clean as they can be from how we're approaching that and what we're doing on that front. So thank you for that.
Oh, great, thanks. Anything else on that? Okay, if not, we will move to new business D, and I think Ryan has got this one as well. It's a review of the updated job description for executive assistant to the town administrator, one of several openings that we have at the moment.
Right.
So Ryan, if you want to speak to the changes maybe in particular or additions.
So can the board see, can you see what I'm posting here is the job description up? Can you see that?
No, just the title is up at the moment.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me,
And you have to stop screen sharing and then restart screen sharing.
And then start this shared from my other screen share. Okay, got it.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. No.
We don't all appreciate how much behind the scenes activity has to occur in order for these meetings to happen.
It's fair to say. So
thank you.
All right. Can folks see that?
Yeah, a little bigger would be great.
There we go. How's that?
Yeah, okay.
That's probably too big. Okay, there we go. How's that?
Can never be too big.
Yeah.
Fair enough. This was a discussion that we had as a follow-up to an earlier discussion we had with the board regarding the replacement of the executive assistant to the town administrator. So basically, what, as I mentioned earlier, we had received some input from staff regarding updates that we'd like to make to the job description that better reflected what Nikki, who had the job earlier, had done, and reflect better about what the needs are in town hall. One of the things that I'd start off with is that this does say executive assistant to the town administrator, but really this position takes on a broader role in terms of really assisting everyone here in town hall. So this is not necessarily a resource that is exclusive, under my exclusive purview, or for that matter, the board's exclusive purview, but really is a resource for multiple parties. So as such, you want to have someone when we hire to look at someone who has a welcoming personality and is talented enough to be able to manage, multiple groups and multiple inputs that comes in. So what we did here was to really basically in the red line of this was to show you, one last thing I would also add, and my thanks to Gary for providing a memorandum that he had that was provided to him by Nikki, where we had taken some of the aspects that Nikki had suggested be added to the job description and added to that to this as well. So what you have before you is sort of the red line version of the job description. What you see in red are items that are new items that we've added to it. First of all, of course, updating Board of Selectmen to Select Board to reflect that change. And adding in some other things related to managing our IT vendor, insurance renewals, and processing of licensing. So here's some other things that we've added. These blue items down here are also new, just for whatever reason did not come in color. So this reflects some of those additional needs, including the IT aspects, managing town communications on the website, social media channels, and reverse 911. We've got basically assisting other town employees with IT needs, helping a budget for the town hall office needs, helping public records requests. Public records requests really do become all hands on deck requests, even though this individual may not be the person who's assigned to respond back to public records requests, but they also should be there and available to help out on an as-needed basis in that regard. Weekly accounts payables, we put that in there, and office manager for town hall staff. That gets back to my earlier point that this is a resource for everyone in town hall. In the case of my former assistant, she, in my prior community, she was really the go-to person for anything that happened on town hall. There were questions about, why isn't the copier working? What are we going to do? Ranging from that topic to what do we do about the coffee pods, to everything else that so those questions don't necessarily come to me and free me up to assign it to somebody else. So, and then of course my favorite piece, performs other finishing duties as required. So there's always that qualifier there at the end. So that's always there as well. So these were our key updates. We wanted to be able to look at this again and present that back to you. Everything else is essentially the same in terms of the other basics for the job description, but we just we had committed to come back to you with an updated description that meets our needs, and we believe that does this. I would also add, with Jackie moving on too, that's a separate thing. I think we heard earlier that we're going to come back to the board with an updated job description, some thoughts on that front. But I do believe that this job description accurately reflects what this position should be focusing on, and that this is the right job description at this time for this specific position. And I'd like to get the board's feedback on this, as well as your permission to move forward and get this posted as soon as possible.
Questions or comments? We'll start with Diane this time.
So I think the job description is pretty spot on. It's a lot of stuff. And I would say let's put it out there. I think we need someone in that position sooner rather than later.
Gary?
This time I get to say, I agree with the appreciation.
That's why I
Speaker.
switched it around, so you get
Yes.
an opportunity to do that,
Yes.
Gary.
Good, we've seen this
So-
list, I reviewed it all, back last January as to what Nikki was actually doing.
Right.
And I think this really reflects what the job needs are right now. So let's go forward quick.
And I agree as well. I have a couple of easy questions. And I guess one point, a clarification point, which Gary just made as well. So the red line and blue line are new to the job description,
Correct,
but actually reflect probably what Nikki was actually doing when she left. So this is a sort of comprehensive list of what this person or this job entails. Is that
And some
a
of
fair
that's come
statement?
directly from what Nikki
Yeah,
provided us with. So yes, is the
which is great, because who knows better than the person who's doing
Correct.
the job.
correct.
So I have one comment and one question. But I definitely agree we need to get this going on this pretty quickly. On the third page, there's an education and experience requirement. In this case, and this is a leftover, I think it requires a high school diploma or equivalent. When I looked at the job description, there's some pretty complex activities and multiple skills required here. I would suggest that this may be a situation where we would like to have someone who has a college background or a college degree or equivalent, rather than a high school diploma. Just that there's something to do with being a little bit older, a little more experienced, and having a little bit more experience with managing
Okay.
different things.
Catherine, do you think with an associate's or bachelor's degree?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, that's a suggestion. Thank you.
And then the only other thing that I would be interested in knowing / having a discussion about before you go ahead and post this is, do you have a thought on what the posted pay range would be and how that compares to the current pay range for this position?
Well, I'm pulling this out now. The current budgeted amount is $70,194. So we would probably want to have that, within that, within the budgeted range.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. That
Ryan,
answers-
if I may,
Mhm.
can I add two?
Jackie,
So-
please.
Catherine, the other item to consider when we're doing postings like this is not a significant job description change in terms of us reweighting this position and regrading it. So
Right.
while we have that budgeted amount, as Ryan discussed, we also have the min, median, max that we can rely on from our classification table as well.
Right.
So that's something that, so there's, it's for the public to understand. It's not just about what's budgeted for. We also have that, market schedule that we go off of.
Right. Thank you for that. I understand that it probably would fall within the same range that it did before, and it would be dependent, I assume, on the person who applies and their experience, since there would be a range. I just wanted to understand that piece of it from a budgeting point of view before. Other than that, I say go for it, and good luck. And we certainly need someone in that role as soon as we can. Hopefully we'll get some really good applicants.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, anything more on that? I've now lost track where we, okay, I think we're on old business G now, which is the discussion of the Maple Woods Community Preservation and Affordable Housing Trust grant loan extension requests. I'm going to have to try to find that on my,
I can pull.
but yeah, that's, and
You want me to pull it up, Catherine? I can do that if you like.
yeah, that'd be great. And I don't know whether you or Jackie are the best person to give us a little background on this.
So this is a request that basically started started basically from the Affordable Housing Trust letter back August 16th, 2021, basically asking that the board consider the extension of some of the loan parameters. So basically, the state is still looking for state funding for the Maple Woods project. And I probably should pass this off to Jackie because this is not my area of expertise, but basically it was because of the fact that they were still waiting to get funding, some of those deadlines needed to be extended. And so that's really the request before the board. So Jackie, I know I'm screwing this up here, but
No, you're doing just fine.
Okay.
So just for a little context to bring ourselves back to, so this had been approved. We have 750,000 approved through CPA funding at town meeting from 2019 annual town meeting. And then we also had a loan from the Affordable Housing Trust. So I want to just clarify that one is a grant, one is a loan, but the loan is only a loan because it's callable if the project or the units were ever to fall out of affordability in perpetuity. So it's a recallable loan, but it's not like we're giving them the money and then we're expecting the money back. It's only a loan in that circumstance. So it's $1 million between the two, which is why we negotiated both the community preservation agreement and the Affordable Housing Trust agreement kind of in parallel processes with the applicant to both the CPC and the Affordable Housing Trust. So different financing processes, different funding sources, but similar intent. $1 million altogether. So as this project went through the town meeting timeline with the Community Preservation Committee, the Select Board, and then finally the town meeting vote, we had put in, and thank you, Ryan, for having the certified vote up there. Some of Diane's great certified vote work from her past life. So as you all may recall from, living through this with me, the CPC had put together a pretty extensive list of conditions on this money because while the town wanted to show community support for the project, which Harbor Light needs when they go to the state to DHCD for funding for projects of this nature, community support is shown via, this kind of financial support. The town also wanted to make sure that for the investment of this $1 million of both CPA and Affordable Housing Trust funds, we were going to see the project to completion that we anticipated, that we were sold to, that was applied for. So even in the past on other projects, this grant agreement is our standard CPA grant agreement from the start. All of the CPA applicants at this point have to go through this grant agreement process because it provides the select board with teeth post-town meeting to make sure that what the applicant has promised to the Community Preservation Committee comes to fruition once the funds are allocated by town meeting. So at this point, Harbor Light is asking for this extension, as Ryan had pointed out. This did go initially to the Affordable Housing Trust because they and the select board have to work in conjunction on their funds, whereas the select board at this point is the only partner when it comes to the CPA funds because town meeting has already done their action. So the select board enters into the grant agreement with Harbor Light Community Partners in this case. So we have the select board at the table for CPA and then the select board and the Affordable Housing Trust at the table for the Affordable Housing Trust funds. And that's a pretty quick summary of a pretty complex period of issues and time. but just to make sure that we're all kind of coming from the same place. So at this point, Margaret has been working with our council, KP Law, as well as the Affordable Housing Trust, to ensure that all of these contingencies that we put in place to protect these units on our subsidized housing inventory, or SHI, which we're looking to get the 10% threshold for 40B. And these units put us over that threshold. And so in order to protect the town's investment and what we had discussed at town meeting, they are seeking an extension because they're still needing to get funding from DHCD. But we've worked to make sure with Harbor Light that with that extension, we're not going to be losing any ground with our subsidized housing inventory. There's no changes to the other parts of the conditions of the grant agreement other than the extension of the time frame in which they will get the funding from DHCD and get a building permit. It is something that the land use office is monitoring and, very mindful of the timing. I know from conversations I've had at the beginning of the summer with Mr. DeFranza, he's hopeful that he may be getting this funding in this upcoming funding cycle, as Chairman Hostler has alluded to in the letter from the Affordable Housing Trust as well. So again, just trying to give you a very wide summary of a very dense financial and legal issue. I'm happy to answer questions, but I hope that just kind of gets us all thinking about this again. I know it's been a while since it's been before the board, but that's where we are now.
Okay, questions for Jackie? Should we start with Gary this time?
Okay.
Diane had her hand up.
I did.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
did.
Oh, Diane.
That's
go
okay.
ahead.
That's all right.
Okay.
So my
New
question,
glasses.
Jackie or Ryan, it says that they didn't secure funding. Is there a reason that the state didn't authorize that funding, or is there something that they might not fund the state?
So typically what happens is the first time that they put in for DHCD funding for any project, and that's not they not being Harbor Light, they being many affordable housing developers across the Commonwealth, do not often get funding on the first round. I know there's some optimism from Harbor Light that they will get funded on the second round, because this project, though having been in litigation for a period of time, is something that's been on the DHCD radar for some time, since its initial version couple of iterations ago. So they're optimistic that there's potential funding in this upcoming round in December. But I think the thing to keep in mind is this agreement protects us. So while we are extending the requirements, it's still within the scope of keeping the units on our SHI, and we still don't cut the check until they've met the contingencies. So we have not given them any funding at this point.
Thank you.
Gary, I saw that hand.
All right. So yes, the select board at previous approval points, Harbor Light was quite clear, and we understood that, the state level funding would, had a chance on the first round, but probably a better chance on the second round or beyond. So I think, we're well protected on this. We keep our affordable housing numbers intact and no dollar amount out there. So I'm in favor, we need to give them this extension so that we can get this project eventually done.
Okay, so just a couple of comments, and then you guys would be shocked to know that I have a process question. So backing up a little for clarification, this is a typical CPA or actually a CPA grant agreement, which is in the purview of the select board, with one exception, I think, and that is that there were specific conditions, a list of specific conditions that Jackie referenced, with the purpose A, as Jackie mentioned, of making sure that we end up with the project that the town voted for. And I would add B, the discussion at the time was that we're essentially committing as a community the support, and we're holding $1 million in funds subject to these conditions. And they're many of them are timeline conditions. So I have absolutely no reason to not support an extension. It seems like a reasonable extension, but I do think we need to be mindful of the fact that this is the second extension that we have the authority to give, and we would be the second, but that it's 18 months longer that we're holding the money that could potentially, maybe not, used for something else. So I think as this moves on in the future, I guess this is my caveat for any future requests of extension, that we should be aware of the fact that by committing this money in this way, we're committing it and we're not able to spend it on anything else, just as an awareness point. The other thing is, and I'll ask this question, but I don't know. I don't think it'll be answered tonight. In reading some of the documentation, and I don't think this is a substantive issue, but I do believe that although we will be giving, or we're proposing giving, an extension in time, that the safe harbor and the SHI numbers are calculated from the time, in this case, the time of the litigation dismissal, and they're irrespective of the extension. So, as I said, I don't think this is significant, because I don't think there are people who are going to be banging down the door to, with this just about ready to, shovel ready, essentially, to ask for another affordable housing project. However, I do think that with this extension that we're going to have a period of time where these units are either not on our SHI or we don't have safe harbor. In other words, another 40B could come in. To that end, and I asked Margaret if this was a reasonable request. I think it is. We'll be voting on this at our next meeting, and I'm hoping that we can have sort of a timeline of, assuming that we make this extension, what does it actually look like, sort of in a little bit more of a clear standalone. What was the old deadline? What are the new deadlines? What effect does it have on our SHI for what period of time? And also on our safe harbor. So those are the comments. The question I have, and I've asked this a couple of times, but I think I'm asking it the wrong way, and I don't know if they'll have an answer, but hopefully we'll understand the question. Assuming, so we have two different documents, one from the Affordable Housing Trust, as Jackie said, a loan agreement, and the CPA grant agreement. Both of those have conditions in them. So the process for the Affordable Housing Trust, it seems to me a little bit simpler, because assuming we approve this extension, KP amends the loan agreement with the Affordable Housing Trust, and we all sign that, and that's all done. My question is about the CPA grant. So I understand that assuming we approve this extension, my understanding would be that KP would then amend the CPA grant agreement that came as a result of the 2019 Affordable Annual Town Meeting. But since there are conditions in the agreement, and the conditions in the CPC agreement were approved by town meeting as part of the vote, I'm wondering if the changes that we are proposing, or the extension that we're proposing to make in the conditions in the CPA agreement, since we're changing the conditions, if that doesn't also require a town meeting vote of the change to a substantive change to the vote that was taken in 2019. Does that question make sense? I don't know if there's an answer, but does it make sense?
I think I understand the question you're asking, Catherine, and I think so. Kind of backing up to your question, your first question earlier in your commentary. So Margaret Hoffman has been, working with the Affordable Housing Trust. She was not at the time that we did this work, but she is now. And
Mhm.
also we have our new building commissioner, Rich Maloney, and I'm bringing him in on this project over the next month. So I think part one of your question is that I think I will anticipate that they will be checking in with Ryan, and this will probably show up on an agenda sometime in December or January, as a check-in and an update on how is Harbor Light doing with DHCD, because you are correct in that the current SHI status is dependent on the date of the stipulation of dismissal of the litigation, which is February 2021. I don't have the exact day of the month, but it's February 2021. So currently our SHI status is dependent on the comprehensive permit having been issued and everything being submitted, and everything is our SHI is sound right now until February of 2022. The intention, I think, by Harbor Light is that if they get funding in this upcoming round, we will likely know that before February 2022. Whether we do or don't, that's going to be something they need to communicate to us very quickly.
Right.
It's something that will probably be on one of your, not to presume your agendas, but probably on a December or January agenda for some updates. However, the thing that I want to keep in mind for you and for the board and the public is that the safe harbor carries forward upon the issuance of a building permit within a certain period of time of the issuance of the comprehensive permit. So the next few months, we are also going to be working, as Chairman Hostler also indicated in the Affordable Housing Trust letter, that Harbor Light has indicated to us that prior to that February 2022 end of the current safe harbor status that we are in, that is currently sound, a building permit would be applied for. And that further extends the safe harbor once there is a building permit, and then once again, site work has begun. So there is significant GHCD funding being sought, but Harbor Light also has other funding sources, which I don't have off the top of my head, but I do have here in the office from their CPC application. It's all of their pro forma, because I think we're talking in total about $30 million for the project. So our 1 million, and then some from DHCD, and then some from private funding sources. So there has been discussion about them pulling a building permit and then further beginning site work under that building permit, the septic system, moving dirt around, the site work can be started, and that can also protect the soundness of our SHI. I'm not ready to speak to the deadline of how long that keeps us sound, but in lieu of the sound safe harbor status evaporating in February of 2022, the action of them pulling that building permit, even if they don't have the DHCD funding yet, would further protect our status. And then I think the other question you have regarding the process for the ATM 2019 vote, we did have both our 40B counsel at KP and then Sharon Everett, who deals with us she worked with me on both of the original versions and the amendments of these agreements. And she's typically who we work with on our Affordable Housing Trust legal and our real estate transactions. And because of the way that we wrote the CPA article for town meeting, if you go through the checklist, which, we can, sit down together and go through it together if you want to. I don't know the level of detail that we want to do that tonight. There's time frames within this, but the comprehensive permit was issued, I think it says in Joe's letter, I think it was May, but I will be honest with you, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head and I don't have it. So there's a year from the issuance of the modified comprehensive permit for them to pull a building permit. There's also pulling the building permit prior to the year from the stipulation of dismissal. So at this point, from what we're hearing from KP, we don't need to amend anything with town meeting. But I'm happy to sit down and go through it with you in further detail as I'm transitioning this project to others, to ensure that, we're in alignment with everything and that Ryan has a clear path of what needs to be done to ensure that the safe harbor status is maintained.
Okay.
And I
Thank you
think
for
that's
that,
a
Jackie.
partial answer.
Yeah, it is. I think I'm going to ultimately, because I'm still not being completely clear on my question. I think we'll talk about it offline. I think I'm ultimately going to either put the question in writing and ask for an answer in writing on just on the process part. Relative to and I've heard this a couple of times now, well, we'll just, we'll put in a line or a water line, or we'll start moving some dirt, and that will allow them to get a building permit, where I understand that that's completely, legal. There are some conditions relative to the purchase of the property and the cost. And so I guess I'm interested to be sure that we follow this, because obviously there's no dirt moving or line putting in unless the developer owns the property. And I let's not forget that, I guess.
Yeah. I think the one thing to keep in mind, as we learned with more recently Wenham Pines, we had gone through the host community agreement process with them. They also went through our land use boards. And while they were able to start doing work prior to owning, I think there's 4 parcels or 8 parcels total that made up Wenham Pines before it became Wenham Pines, when it was still owned by Lakeview. And there are processes that developers use to get permission from current landowners so they can start, there's other options there too, but I'm very happy to have a discussion with you offline. And I also want to clarify. So, Ryan will be getting, this is one of the many memos Ryan will be getting from me. And I'm, pulling in our building commissioner, Rich Maloney, because having been the Danvers commissioner for some time, he's not unfamiliar with the organization we're talking about or the process and type of project we're talking about. So I think he'll be a good expert for the board, as you move forward to this next phase of this project.
Right.
And as such, Catherine, I think if you could put this in writing, which you want us to follow up on, we can do that.
Sure.
Process.
I'll do that. And none of my questions really affect the way I would vote on, extending on the extension. They're just sort of ancillary as we move forward through this process to understand, if we're doing it correctly. So I've taken enough time on that. I always seem to have a lot of questions on affordable housing. So I'll send in some questions. If anybody else has any specific questions, please get them to Ryan, and we'll vote on this at our next meeting. Speaking of meetings, because we'd like to, keep things interesting, the next item under old business is a discussion of plans for the September 24th select board workshop meeting. And I'll move this one. I'll take this one for a second to say that it's turned out that date does not work for everyone on the board. And obviously this is not a meeting we can have without everyone. So I think that a workshop like this works better in a morning than, this time of night, since it's could be a little bit longer and given some thought. So since we can't do it on the 24th, which would be a Friday morning, and then the first Friday morning that we could do this is in October, which feels a little late to me. Before we talk about what the plans would be, I'd like to suggest and get your feedback on whether or not folks would be available on, and Ryan's going to correct me if I get this wrong, but I believe it would be Saturday, the 18th of September. Correct. In the morning, so that we have, I'm available then. Diane, are you available on the Saturday, the 18th?
I can be, yep.
Okay, and Gary?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's say the 24th from 9 to 11?
The 18th?
18th, oh my gosh. Saturday, September 18th, 9 to 11. Did I finally say that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that being said, okay. So that being said, I just was hoping to have a little bit of a discussion on what we hope to achieve at this meeting. We know goal setting is an important part of it, and I think we should all go to that meeting prepared with goals that we may have. And I know that we also have a list from the last time there was a goal setting meeting, which was over a year ago with the select board, but some of those goals may still be applicable. So we have that. It occurs to me, and I wanted to get some input on the fact that this may be an opportunity for us as a board and with our new town administrator to discuss some tasks or some issues or some projects that we think may be coming up, and discuss them and discuss their priority. We're new as a board. We have various levels of experience as select board members, but the three of us are a new trio. And so I think it might be useful to expand it from goals a little bit so that we can really get a sense when we can have a conversation of, where we're in agreement, where we're not in agreement, what direction each of us is, interested in taking. And then also, of course, to be able to share that with a new town administrator. So that's my thoughts on that. And I'm interested in any feedback anyone might have.
Diane?
So being sort of the newest one, I'm kind of open to anything. I think goals and process and plans and our own, what's the word I'm looking for? Boy, it's hard to think at night.
I know, after a whole day of work.
I'm open to any type of meeting where we can discuss things for Wenham. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Gary? What?
Yes, I think we've added a couple of things tonight that we said we ought to talk about. So I think, the goals, and I would frame that in both short-term things that we need to get done over the next few months, and also focus on longer-term, as I said, this ARP money and big projects like the Main Street rebuild and so forth that we ought to take a look at as well.
Okay, making a note of that. That's a good point. I think in addition, to the extent that we can prioritize the goals, that's a really hard thing to do, but I think we should at least talk about how important things are to people. I also think and something that we maybe haven't done is to look at the resources that we have and to try to match them to the goals and the tasks, not exactly person to person, but to make sure that we're identifying activities and goals that are actually achievable with the staff and the resources that we have, and maybe to put some time frames on them. So if everyone's okay with that, Ryan and I will put together a little bit more of an agenda. It'll be very general so that we have a lot of ability to have a wide-ranging discussion. And we'll just, everyone please come with some thoughts so that we can be as productive as we can. Anything else on that?
Would it be possible to share that kind of agenda before we post it? Maybe see where you're going with it, see if we have anything to add.
Well, I think the agenda is just going to say goal setting and, I don't know whether we'd call it tasks or issues. I don't think that we would identify them in the agenda because the whole idea of the meeting is to come up with the list.
Okay.
So at the beginning of the meeting, or Ryan can put together, we can send Ryan, as we've done before, lists of things that we're interested in including in the meeting, and we can have that in our packet for the meeting, which, we get a day or so before. Does that sound okay?
Okay.
Okay, so Saturday, September 18th from 9 to 11. And if there's anything, as I said, I would say, Ryan, is it fair to say by when would you, if we have things that we'd like to put on a list for you to include in the packet, by when would you like to have those things?
Let's see, today I'm looking at the calendar. How about close of business on September 14th, Tuesday, September 14th? That sound reasonable?
Okay. That's, yep. Okay, so let's try to do that just so that we're not spending a lot of time coming up with ideas or just recording them. Okay, any more on the much anticipated workshop? No, okay. Overview of plans. This we're on old business I. Approaching the end, guys. Overview of plans for public meeting configuration via Zoom and HWCam television. This I'm going to expect will not change a little, but time frame may change since we've just voted to stay on Zoom for a while. But Ryan, I'll let
This
you.
is actually going to be Jackie who's going to be.
Okay. Oh yeah. So Jackie, I know that you've been doing a lot of work on this. So when we're eventually ready to not be on Zoom, what are we proposing?
Yes, good
Thank
evening
you.
again. I will keep this brief because it won't be relevant for at least a couple more meetings. So this is just an overview of where we currently are with our Zoom technology and where we're going once we have the capacity to do hybrid meetings. The couple of things that I would bring to the board's attention that I think it's just important for us to acknowledge is that this strategy is based on a couple of factors. One being that we have one room in town hall that has the technology capacity for HWCam. Two, the staffing capacity of the town of Wenham. And three, the staffing capacity of HWCam. So I do want to acknowledge and thank Bill Melville because he did a really smooth installation this summer of this new technology. I really am excited for you all to be able to be in the select board room to use it. I think it's going to be really great as case numbers improve. I think this is going to be how we potentially can have meetings going beyond the pandemic for public input. When we are in person, it will not really change for you so much as a board in terms of how you might recall being in person in the past. But it will still have a staff person, monitoring the Zoom. We can have guests during Zoom. I, certainly would like to see if we have, a department head who, can't physically be with us, but, needs to be available. A guest like, a special counsel or a consultant. We can accommodate guests, we can accommodate public input. It's really just going to help us maintain the engagement from home that we've had from residents while we've been on Zoom. Once the select board does return to in person, there's just going to be some limitations because we only have this one room that the technology from HWCam is available. And because between our staffing and HWCams, there's only so many people that can, that Bill can hire and have run his technology, and then we'll have to have folks available. So when we do start to have folks come back in person, I'm not sure if I'll be here. I don't know what the timing is going to be on that. But my recommendation to the board at this point is that there's some prioritization. I think you have one room that this can happen with, the select board, potentially, one of the land use boards or the finance committee. But basically there'll be 4 nights a week really that have the potential for this. But we'll have to do some scheduling with staff and HWCam. And I'm going to work with Bill Melville over the next few weeks. As of right now, I'm the only one trained on this because it didn't make sense to train if we weren't going to use it right away. But I'll be providing, kind of pivoting from September 1st when I wrote this. I'll be pivoting with Ryan in the loop so that our staff is trained and ready to go when you do want to resume hybrid. And we'll have some expectations from Bill of what his staffing capacity is going to be, so we know how many available nights a week that we can do this. but it's similar to in the past where we had the limitations on what was being streamed live versus what was being recorded by our minutes taker only. So it's just kind of a quick summary. I'm happy to show off the equipment to anyone and test runs. The new projector is stunning, visually stunning, and I'm just very excited for our staff and for the public to get to enjoy it when they do return to the in-person meetings. But this is definitely kind of going to be rolled into some of my transition work so that, you're all comfortable and staff is trained ahead of whenever the decision to come in person hybrid occurs. But it's late and I'll take your questions, but otherwise that's the update for tonight.
Jackie, if I could, just a point of clarification too. So I want to make clear to the board, this doesn't mean, what this means is that this isn't going to necessarily be available for every board and town board and committee. So this is going to be available, and Jackie, please help me out here, but I think we're talking about the select board meetings, FinCom meetings, and either planning or ZBA meetings, depending on, what type of meeting that they may be having. Say if it's a hearing that they think that there'll be more interest in the public that requires filming from HW Cam. So is that a fair depiction? I just want to make sure that we're tempering this in terms of if other boards and committees expect that this technology would be available to them when we kind of make our way through our COVID Zoom meeting stage here.
No, I think, Ryan, that's absolutely accurate. And I think it's reflective of our capacity with HW Camp prior to the pandemic. So right now, anyone can join in on Zoom, but we still only have limited meetings that are live with HW Camp. So it's very much accurate what you said, and it's very reflective of what was live on the Comcast channel, Verizon channel, went pre-pandemic. So we have very limited capacity with HW Cam. They also serve our schools, our organizations, as well as the town of Hamilton. So I think the only thing I would add to that list is, for example, if, we've had, public hearings in the past about the Main Street Signal project, that's something that would be, something that we'd reach out to Bill Melville in advance about to get recorded. So things that are, kind of special in nature that would draw high attention for a public forum is the only thing I would add. But I think that's a very critical point you've brought up.
Anything that basically is going to be on HW Cam in terms of it being broadcast can then be also tied into the Zoom product to allow people then to participate remotely, basically. So
correct. Anything for the live broadcast, and we will still have the capacity. Like at this time, we are live on HW Cam right now. But there are other boards and committees that are just on Zoom, and we send HW Cam the recordings for their reruns. So we'll still have that option for boards and committees that want to get their meetings out there onto HW Cam's YouTube channel and platform as a rerun. But for live and for the hybrid of the public being able to engage with us, with some people in person and some people online, is very, very limited capacity.
And do keep in mind for the board, to Jackie's point, that also that for boards otherwise who are not being broadcast, that also requires the state to extend or the allowance that public meetings can still take place over Zoom. Because while we hope that maybe that would still continue, we can't make any presumptions to that end. So right now, all those meetings are taking place so that if there's, say, a meeting of the Iron Rail Committee and they wanted to record it and then provide it in some recorded fashion, they could do that. But we also don't know whether or not Mass General Law will be updated over the long term to allow that. So I just wanted to put some, some parameters around what this would be. So,
questions for Jackie or Ryan on this eventual platform that sounds pretty cool? Mary, Diane, I don't know. Stunning projector. Sounds good for the audience. Not sure. I might have to put in the budget line item for hair and makeup. If we're gonna have that.
Well, it won't be you on the projector. It'll be what you're seeing. So like the budget spreadsheets are gonna look stunning.
And clear and crisp. Great.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Zoom does have filters, everyone, too, so.
Yeah.
This is.
I already
Yeah,
have
so-
improve my appearance filter
There
on
you go.
mine, but you can just do so much with technology. All right. Anything else on this? Okay, so we have just the first reading of a few policies, and I'm going to make the presumption that we'd like to keep going and get through these first readings tonight. Is that okay with the board? Yes. Okay. So the first one that we have is a financial policy. It's the audit policy, the much anticipated audit policy. And Ryan, perhaps you want to give us a little bit of background or
So this is
explanation?
actually, this is listed as the first reading, but I believe we did look at this at our last meeting. So this
It's
is
true.
what's been recommended to us by our town accountant and finance director, Jamie. The idea would be that we wanted to adopt this policy in particular where we had these earlier discussions with the board regarding the audit committee, that having this piece incorporated into our financial policies would help address regular updates to the FinCom and the select board. So this is, if you notice down here, this is a request for again joint meetings and to allowing our auditors to come and explain their findings in person to both boards, or potentially in this case virtually. So that's again, you've seen this already. This is coming out a second time, and again, the idea being that if once this is voted on, it will not be voted on at this meeting, but once it is, then it would be incorporated into our financial policies.
Questions or comments on this? Ryan is right. We've had some discussion before.
I think
Gary?
we're good on this. I note that the auditors are actually in this week, right, Ryan?
Correct.
We
Correct.
can get this passed and put into motion for an October or early November meeting.
Yep. Yeah. Once the audit's complete, yes.
Diane, comments or questions?
It looks just like what Jamie had recommended last time, so it looks good to me.
In my usual form, I just have a couple of small edits, very small. In the policy guidelines, we refer to the Board of Selectmen. That's one place where we missed the Select Board instead of Board of Selectmen.
Mhm.
And then I wasn't sure I understood this. The last sentence, once this audit is completed, the town will hold a joint finance committee and select board meeting. I got that part. But it says at fiscal year end to allow the auditors to explain their findings. My understanding was that meeting would occur at the end of the audit. Now, maybe that would.
So I think that's what it's
so
saying, is the audit is the fiscal year end report of that. So if they were to, the audit were to come in, Catherine, that would be for the prior fiscal year, so FY21. So I think that's what it means in this case.
Okay, so once the audit is complete, then there would be a joint meeting to explain the findings.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Other than that.
Okay, and we'll make the other update on the Board of Selectmen. Okay.
Okay. The next one is on investment policy. It looks like OPEB trust.
Right. Jackie, do you want to take this one?
Anything you want to comment on?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this is the investment policy statement draft based on the discussions that we had with Bartholomew, our investment advisors who had come to your August 3rd meeting. Sorry, that's much further away than I recalled it being. So this has been reviewed by our finance director, Jamie Cologne, as well as our treasurer collector, Sherry LeBlanc. Again, a first reading of a financial policy, but this incorporates some of the recommendations that Bartholomew put in place, just kind of brings us up into current practice for our investment policy statement. And I will say that if Ryan can scroll down for me a little bit, it's very luxurious to not be the one scrolling tonight. So thank you for that. Keep a little more. I think it's on the last page. Oh yes, if you can hop back up one to above the event. So the other thing that I want to make sure the board's aware of, too far,
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. So at the very end of this policy, the treasurer collector does have to sign off. So that's one of the items is once the board approves this, the treasurer collector does sign off on this because this will be how the treasurer collector, this is their guidebook for managing our investment funds. So they work with our investment advisor. This is something that treasurer collectors in Massachusetts are statutorily charged with, is managing these investments. So once the board approves this policy, this financial policy, it will be incorporated into our financial policies that we submit to our auditors. That so they will, when they're checking the work during the audit, this is one of the policies. We submit all these policies to them. And any treasurer collector the town hires will have to sign to having read and understanding this policy, and that they will do their work towards this policy. So it gives some good guidance to the person in that position, as well as our investment advisors. So that'll be one piece of follow-up once we get further into this process. But happy to answer any other questions, but I think Bartholomew really spoke well to their updates back in August.
Question. So the investment decisions under this policy reside strictly with the treasurer collector then?
That is by this policy and by the statute. So
Right. Does the statute provide any alternatives for the treasurer collector to get other advice other than from the investment firm itself?
Not that I've seen in past practice, but Ryan may have a different experience than I.
I mean, other opinions can always be solicited, but ultimately it's up to the treasurer in terms of how they choose to proceed forward in regarding investments.
All right, thank you.
Don't the addendum pages, don't they give a little bit of parameters
Mhm.
on what the treasurer collector is able to do?
They do, and the Mass General Law does have some requirements and DOR. So it's not as if it's just the treasurer, without any kind of backup. So as you can see, we've got the parameters, as Diane mentioned. We have strict rules about what can be invested, and that can't be changed by the treasurer collector. Like I had heard the question this week during a conversation about ARPA. Could the ARPA funds be invested? No, they have to be in a regular your regular fund. They couldn't be a part of this. So there is a lot of law, and then this policy just kind of further blankets the protocol for our local treasurer collector. But I think, Gary, to your question, I think the intention is to take is to make sure that it's a financial officer of the town versus a political, as much as the select board is the chief executive of the community, you're still, elected officials. It still has a political piece. So it kind of puts it in the charge of a financial officer. The treasurer collectors have a good deal of education. They have a strong certification program for both treasuring and collecting, and this is part of what they go to school for.
Got it. We're good.
Any other questions? Catherine?
Yeah. My computer is going on and off, so I apologize if someone has already asked this or made this comment. My understanding is that the treasurer collector is the custodian, has always been the custodian of these funds and makes these decisions. So this policy does not change anything relative to the role of the treasurer collector. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Okay. So I only have one comment for future, and it's on page 5 of 9. I think it might be the last page before the signatures, and it's reporting requirements. It says that on a semi-annual basis, a report containing the following information will be prepared by the treasurer and distributed to the town manager as appropriate. I would hope that, in our case, town administrator, I would hope that the select board would also receive a semi-annual report. So I would request that when that report is distributed or made to the town administrator by the treasurer, that the select board also be included in the receipt of that report. That's my only comment on this. Otherwise, I think it looks fine.
I think it'll also, it was a friendly addition to that too. We use the correct title, town administrator, not town manager.
I would,
You're a good sport.
on that, it seems to me that if the report by the treasurer goes to our town administrator, the town administrator would then share it with us, rather than make it the responsibility of the treasurer collector to send it to us. I think it should come through the town administrator, which is what I think it says here. Oh, yeah,
Well, it doesn't
Doesn't-
include
it doesn't
the
actually
select
state.
board.
right,
Here?
right, I meant that.
And I guess what I'm thinking, I don't know what we're talking about when we say report. If it's a written report, I agree with you, Diane. But if the treasurer is going to make a presentation on this information, then I think it would be great if it could, be done at a select board meeting. But
Okay.
I agree. If it's a written report, of course, she would send it to the TA and he would send it out to us.
Or, and the TA could recommend having it on an agenda, and then they'd come and present.
Yeah, also possible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. My real thing was to make sure that the select board also had the same information so that we
Mhm.
would be getting regular reports on these investments.
Agreed.
Okay. Anything else on that one? If not, I think we have, and hopefully my earbuds won't die and my internet will make it. We have a sick leave bank policy. I actually an update, because this is a policy that's been in existence for a while, I believe. But looks to me like there are a few changes. So Ryan or whoever would like to speak to that.
Again, I'll turn this over to Jackie in terms of the updates that have been made to the sick leave bank for non-union employees.
Thanks, Ryan. So as you know, those following along at home might recall, we adopted a sick leave bank back in 2018. Since the adoption of the sick leave bank, we've had a couple of changes. Firstly, we've had significant turnover in the finance office, as well as the town administrator's office. And two, we've also seen our library non-union employees, with the exception of the library director, go and transition into the library AFSCME union. So this request generated from a request from one of from the library employees, because this is an update to the sick leave bank for non-union employees and is part 1 of 2. We'll also be providing you with a sick leave bank policy for the union employees at some point in the next couple of weeks. So first, we're just starting with an update and introducing the concept, because I know Gary and Diane, you were not on the board. I know Catherine, you were when we did the initial version of this. So first, we're just updating this policy to give current opportunities to employees who were not made aware of this policy over the last 2 years during any COVID onboarding. And then we're also doing a little bit more on the documentation with who's administering the sick leave bank, and also giving opportunity to employees where when the select board changes this policy, there's another opportunity for people to join. So if you join the town and you say, no, thank you, I actually, after a year, I'm not wanting to donate my sick days, but then, 5 years later, the board changes a policy and you say, this is, a different horse of a different color, I'd like to join, giving an opportunity to longstanding employees if they want to join or leave, if the policy is changed. So it's a very minor update, but it will also, the reason we're bringing it now is that it will also create a sequel for our union employees to have a sick bank, because we have to have a separate sick bank for our non-union employees from our employees that are governed by collective bargaining units. So that's kind of what triggered this. It's a pretty small update, but for the employees that we've onboarded during COVID, I think it's going to be a good change. I obviously can't reveal, usage of the sick leave bank, based on, protecting our employees' privacy. But, it is something that employers are offering. It is something that has been taken advantage of in certain circumstances, according to the protocol since it's been in existence. So it's a nice incentive for our employees, particularly as there's only so much they can do with their sick leave if they're not taking it, and if they run out of sick leave and they have an extended care or an extended health issue, which now with COVID seems even more appropriate to have this option available. Ryan, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add.
I don't.
Questions?
Good here.
Good here as well.
Diane?
Okay.
Okay, because I am who I am, I have to have a couple of questions. So if I understand it, presently the policy is we have a policy for non-union employees only? Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And so there are no funds in there that have been contributed by union employees.
Yes, there have. Well, first off, not funds, but days. But
Days,
yes.
I'm sorry, you're right.
But yes, so library employee, if there's any library employees that participated, they would have given to the non-union bank, but now only recently have they become part of a collective bargaining unit. So this is to separate the non-union folks that are remaining non-union from the library employees who had been non-union. And this is something that, we maintained. It was something that they had, we maintained when we did contract negotiations with the library, that they would like to maintain their sick leave bank. So we're just going through and separating the non-union from the library employees who are now not non-union.
Okay, that was my question. And then just another detail. There's a sick leave bank committee, I see it has been, administered by a committee, town administrator, finance director, and one non-union employee. All makes sense to me. My question, it says upon appointment to the committee, members will be required to blah, blah, blah. My only question there is who appoints people to that committee? Or actually, there's only one appointment, one employee. So who is responsible for appointing the non-union employee?
So it's less of an appointment and more of an availability. So we actually have very limited full-time non-union employees. Most of them are department heads. So likely it's in the past, it's been the employee that when we have our public employee committee, that's not what it is, but for lack of better language, we have a public employee committee, which is a representation from each of the collective bargaining unions. One of the retirees have a representative, and then our non-union employees have a non-voting representative. And so from my recollection, historically, it's been the person who has represented the non-union employees as a voice at the table, though non-voting, and then they've served in this capacity as well. It has changed based on who that person is. But typically it's a game of not it versus a game of wanting to be it. So during the last time that the Public Employee Committee met, I was the only non-union employee willing to serve. So it'll likely that it's going to be whoever is bearing that burden for the rest of us would do so in that capacity as well, pending Ryan and Jamie making a recommendation to the contrary to the board in the future if they wanted to solidify it with a particular position.
Sure, that makes sense. It's a very small point. I might ask you to just think about for our final draft a word other than upon appointment to the committee, because it does sound like someone is appointed. It could be as simple as upon joining the committee or participating or whatever. Like I said,
well taken.
Detail. Someone will be looking in 5 years for the appointing committee.
I think the thought process was that for the new town administrator or finance director upon appointment. So I can clean up that language a little bit.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm glad it's at the time that we instituted this program, it was based out of a very sort of significant need. And I'm really glad to see that it's been sort of revived and revitalized. It's been very helpful to employees. So anyway, happy to see it there. That's all I have on that. Anybody else? If not, and this one, I hope, is going to be the fastest. But I hope I'm not wrong about this. I might not jinx this, but the fastest agenda item yet. We have already seen the Iron Rail cell phone tower request. Some of us have seen it several times. So this is a vote to approve the release of the Iron Rail cell phone tower request for proposals, or RFP. Let's take a motion first, and then we'll see if there's any discussion.
Right, I move to issue the request for proposals for the Iron Rail Cell Tower document dated August 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Are there any? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. So in a hurry. Any comments or questions on this before we vote?
None here.
Okay. Gary, no comments? If
Nope,
not,
ready for it.
we'll move to a vote. Gary,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Catherine, yes. So unanimous to release the RFP for the cell phone tower. Happy about that. Okay. I need to get to my slide because I think that there was, the last thing is other matters. And I have a feeling that I have a note on my slide, which got to get through all of these. Nope, just as Gary would, whoever did this slide has already taken care of my shortcomings. And I don't have to be reminded about to talk about the upcoming meeting dates, except for the fact that although our next regular meeting will be September 21st, 2021, the workshop meeting is written here because we had late breaking news for September 24th, 2021, and that has been changed. It will now be held Saturday, September 18th, 2021 for the workshop. Okay, I have nothing else. Does anyone else have anything?
Wonderful. So I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
The only comment I will make is to thank everyone for getting through this. It's been a long meeting, but we really did a lot and accomplished a lot. So thanks to everyone for that. And we will proceed to a vote on adjournment. Gary?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Catherine, yes. So as of 9:14 p.m., we'll adjourn the select board meeting for September 8th, 2021. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Catherine.
Right.
Good night.
All right.